This is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Do you feel as if you don't belong? Do you know you were meant for something more? Well, you were. Knowledge of who you are and where you really are from is within your reach. Join Janet Carol Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin as they search for the answers as they open up the Stargate to the cosmos.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos. And I'm your host, Janet Carol Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, and our producer, the world-famous Thomas Becker, also known as Mad Painter. And Robert Perala is our guest, and I have a cold, so just bear with me, but I'm going to be here, and I'm okay. And before I bring on my co-host, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Robert Perala, and he is one of the MCs for the Contact in the Desert event that's coming up. Oh, I don't have the dates here. The end of May. I'll have to pull that up. and he is an internationally acclaimed author of The Divine Blueprint and the newly revised edition of The Divine Architect. He is considered by many to be one of North America's finest inspirational speakers. He is a U.S. correspondent and a host of his own internet show, The Robert Perala Report, and has been featured on CNN, the Fox Network, Showtime, and Coast to Coast AM, to name a few. And he has a website called thePeralaReport.com and RobertPerala.com. And he's going to be the host at Contact in the Desert. But he's a host at many of these conferences. He's a very, very busy person. So Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, are you there?
Yeah, I am. I want you to know Robert's a hot musician, too.
Oh, yeah. He's a very hot musician, very talented, and he's an extraterrestrial contactee. And so we're going to talk about all kinds of things on the show today. What else do you want to say, Sash? Anything else?
What's going to be on the Contact in the Desert? What's the highlights? What are you looking forward to?
Robert.
Oh, you're asking me? Oh,
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Good evening. It's great to be on the show. It's great to be on the show. I'm really looking forward to Giorgio Tsoukalos and Graham Hancock, obviously, only because I saw Graham Hancock over the weekend at New Living Expo, and it really was a startling and intelligent presentation. I mean, he understands the whole area of not only the pyramids at Giza, but the monuments that are in Dendera. And also with, a combination of understanding what the esoteric sciences are really about. And he understands astrophysics, cosmology, and he can explain to people, like in the Giza Plateau, how they're lined up with the stars in a way that's really mature, instead of just saying, well, they're lined up exactly with the stars, like a lot of people say, which sounds nice, but there's no information in it. He was actually able to show you in drawings and in proper blueprints what that actually looks like, and you come away with a more startling view of the whole thing, of how significant it really is, because you have proof as you see that presentation that not only did they have flight, but they had flight that had to be done really above the Earth's surface, somewhere in deep space. So that was confirmation that visitors have been here for a long time, and because most of the visitors that are coming here have to understand how to bend time and space and transgress the incredible distance it would even take to get here, because Earth is actually sitting in what's considered like an outpost. I always say we must have been bad, because we were put way out in a section in the quadrant of our galaxy that is way out, kind of in the middle of nowhere. We're not surrounded by a tremendous cluster of planets or stars. We're actually sitting on the outside and everything. So, but anyway, I think that's what's to look forward to as far as he's concerned.
Maybe we're protected. Maybe we were put out to protect us.
That's a really good, insight. And I've been saying in my presentations for many years that, because I started way back in the early 70s, we'll talk about this later, that I was the first kid, I was the young kid in the first UFO conference of its kind in April of 1978 that was headed by Dr. J. Allen Hynek. So, and there was only 18 of us there. But that said, most of my research has been deducting that the story is kind of more interesting than just these sort of
that's
characters.
That's interesting that you evoke J. Hynek, because I used to go to this Star Trek conferences in New York City and Pittsburgh, and that was my 21st birthday. So I went when I was 20 and 21, so I was born in 54. So in 74, and was there with Roddenberry, Asimov, and Heinlein. For them were like this incredible team. And they were talking about things that were, they were saying Star Trek is real in their own way. I know they couldn't say everything, but they were indicating it. And here we are many, many years later. 65. So, and you were at one of the first ones. And where was
It was at the San Francisco Airport Hilton, which is now a parking lot because they took it down years later. And really, it was kind of amazing to see that I had a direct encounter at Christmas time in 1977, and I, coming out of my apartment and scared to death and not knowing what this all was even about, eventually made my way to a woman named Clarissa Bernhardt, who's now on the East Coast, who explained to me a number of things about what this may be. And then I bought a UFO magazine. It was very new in those days. And I looked down and I thought, wow, there's an advertisement. They're actually going to have a conference on this subject matter, because it was only in February of 78 that I thought, gee, maybe this has something to do with extraterrestrials. Because when it happened to me, your mind doesn't really have room for that. I didn't race to it and say, oh my God, I've had an encounter. For the first few months, I didn't know what it was. And I didn't know what it was and why it was. And then I started to dismiss it and say, well, it's some kind of manifestation. And somehow the mind projects this. And then that wouldn't explain the sunburn and being soaked in all this honey oil-like material. And I thought, well, maybe that came from inside me somehow. But it didn't seem to make a lot of sense. I'd never heard of anybody waking up sunburn and then having like a honey substance on them. And I thought that was the hurdle I was stuck with at the time.
Right, you were trying to rationalize it in your mind, and so then when did you shift to thinking it could be extraterrestrials? Did they provide any information for you at this conference to validate that hypothesis?
Interestingly enough, I had gone to the little metaphysical bookstore, and I had bought Alien Meetings by Brad Steiger, and I had read a chapter in there called Angels in Spacesuits. And it was the story of a woman named Clarissa Bernhardt who had contact, and then she described these beings, and she described exactly what I saw, and exactly what, it's pretty much exactly what I had witnessed, And then I looked her up in the phone book. We still, of course, had the yellow pages in those days. So there she was. Or she was in the white pages, and I thought, oh, wow. She was right there on Saratoga Avenue right here in San Jose. So I called her up, and her husband answered the phone, and I explained my story to him, and he thought it was really interesting that I come there right away the next day, because no one had been calling them and saying, look, I saw exactly what I could describe down to a T what it was that I saw. So I arrived the next day. And then I was introduced to her. Then I brought one of those little cassette recorders where you push the cassette in, you push down the little plastic window and press play and record. And she told me...
I remember those.
Yeah. And she told me, well, it's not going to work here. And I was like, what? What do you mean? She said, it's not going to work here. I thought, well, I plugged it in to make sure that the batteries, we could bypass the batteries, just not believing her. And sure enough, it wasn't working. And so I was like, what is this? How would you know that it doesn't work? She says, because I know what you've seen, and I have contact with them, and whatever it was has given me an indication of you. And then there's a few things you need to know about these. Now, what I'm talking about, what materialized in my room in 1977 was sort of what looked like 8.5 foot tall astronauts. They looked like robots almost. They were glowing like the sun, and they had visors, and then they had like orange antennas on top of them. I know that sounds incredible, and they were surrounded in an arcing storm, and they took me through this tunnel of light. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. But to stay to Clarissa, she said she knew I'd had the encounter and that I had contact with them. Now, she had contact with them a number of times, and they have spoken to her. And when you hear that for the first time, that I said, excuse me? I wasn't ready for that they had spoken to her because they didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, they never spoke to me, and all I know was, so how would they sort of speak to you? I said, remember I'm 22 years old here, and I'm 63 now. And she said, well, because they told me, and they told me that they had contacted you, and then now I know, and that was last night. I said they contacted you last night, and she said yes, and I thought, so weird, Is that our cue to go to commercial?
No, that's my computer. I turned it off. Somebody's message.
Oh, okay.
Boing. I'm turning it.
So long story short.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Long story short. She said something that I absolutely am floored at, and to this day. So I said, well, what do you think these things are? And she says, well, we're not completely sure either. We call them the Space Brothers, and they're our brothers and sisters, and they have not necessarily identified themselves that much for obvious reasons that they don't want to be added on to and embellished, and we're in the human kingdom, and if you start in with who they are and their names and blah blah blah, then you'll be all over. She says we only have very minimal contact, but she said they did say one thing. I said what? And she said they're related to you. When you hear that for the first time, it's really shock to the system, And then I thought, so that's what led me to believe eventually, after 35 years now in this business, that there are visitors visiting here, and that they are very related to us, and they're very vested in our DNA, and they're very vested in us, and some have direct relationships while we're in the human kingdom, going through our human life, and then returning back to source, and then others are curiosity seekers that are sort of watching over these souls being born each day and then leaving each day, and that there's many factions that are in charge of what's going on here, and there's the short version.
Wow. Well, I'm looking on the internet, and there was the Alabama tinfoil alien. It looks just like the one that you have in 1973, and from Kelly, Kentucky. Yeah. So tell me, what do you know about that? Have you ever talked to those people?
I actually haven't talked to those people, and the officer. There was a police officer that was off duty that took that photo, and his name is Jeff Greenshaw. And I've never actually spoken to him, and I should. I said, how did you do this?
I were you, yeah.
I don't know why I did never. That's so silly. What an oversight that is. Yeah, and that case is very old. That was the photo that I found in UFO magazine. And there's actually two versions of it. There might be a third, if I remember right. And there's one of four of them standing, and they're very apparitions looking, where they're slightly materialized, slightly vaporous.
Wow.
And
this is something. This is your case. Time to track it down and get all the details. So this is, what was her name? Clarissa Bernhardt?
Clarissa. It's a Clarissa. Clarissa. Clarissa Bernhardt. Bernhardt. Bernheardt.
Heard. And she's still alive?
Yeah, she's on the East Coast. I talked to her a couple of years ago.
Wow. It would be great to get all the characters in this plane. I like to help people validate their experiences by,
Yeah, I ought to call her this week, and I ought to try to track my own case down. I've never even really, never really even bothered. Because remember, there was a long period after all this died down that I went back to a normal life, and I didn't dismiss it, but I just didn't pursue it. So from it would be the end of 79, let me think about this, probably by the beginning of 79 all the way to 92, I didn't really pursue anything. I was very wrapped up in a career, made make very good money, and was just wrapped up in a career and everything else. And then in 1992, I started to return back to the science. And then in 94, I did my first lecture, and it never stopped.
Wow. And I'm looking at this one. I'm gathering the images. So if you if you Google silver suited aliens, there they are. And there's one that kind of shows a face almost.
Seriously?
It's like I'm going to blow it up when I have a chance. So who's making noise? Stop making noise. Anyway.
Sorry.
That's
me.
okay.
Let's
Just
see
stop
here.
doing that. Yeah. So anyway, I'm saving
here
these, and
under
I'm going to look
Google.
this up. It's amazing. It's like there's just one. There's about, and I haven't found the one with 4 yet. I've got to go to the next page. But I'm looking at this one, and it's got writing on it: the Falkville Metal Man, October 17, 1973, Falkville, Alabama, Police Chief Jeff Greenshaw encounter in photos. And
Yep.
I swear I see a nose and a mouth and an eye inside the helmet. I wonder if this might be, and I've been looking at all
Which
these
one are you
time
looking at? Are you looking at 18 spacesuits from science fiction? Which one? It says in
I'm
Google.
looking at E.T. Ware, Metallic Silver, anyway, from, I don't know, it just popped up in the middle of my screen. I put in silver-suited aliens, and not the first row, second, and the fourth row down, there's the one that I recognize from your poster. Then I clicked on that, and it brings up related images. And anyway, I'll send it to you. How's that? But
Yeah,
it
send me
looks
the
like
link
a
to that.
face in there, and there are more. And I'm going to go and gather them all, and then I'm going to blow them up. Oh, my God, there's like a bunch. There's the police officer. Yeah, so...
Wow, send that. Maybe I'm making a break to write on your show.
Yeah. And anyway, but the one has, I swear, it looks like eyes and nose. And so, okay, it sticks out, pops out. So I will send you these, I promise. So I wonder if this is they said to relate to you. So now I've been listening to all these time travel shows. Could it be your future self coming back to see your current self in some kind of time travel device? Could it be somebody
you never know.
descended from you? Yeah, you never know. Because what's with the suit, right? Well, I guess aliens, this could be a hostile and violent environment to them. Yeah. Interesting.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it changed my life at the time, and then I sort of left that life and then returned back to it. And, it's... Since
so
then,
you left that life, and you went into, what did you do? Okay, so you went to that conference. Let's go back in your timeline. You went to the conference, and you met with who was there? I think that was one Roddenberry was at? Was that Kirk or something?
Yes. William Shatner was there. The Hertacks were there. I was just with them over the weekend, and Desiree sat in the front row of my lecture, and she nodded and sort of smiled. There was a young Richard Hoagland. Nobody really knew who he was then. There was a younger Stanton Friedman. And then there was Dr. J. Allen Hynek, and there was probably only about 18 of us there that day. And that's how the whole thing kind of started and everything. And somewhere in the ethers, that tape belongs to... Hynek, and his son, Paul Hynek, is going to be at Contact in the Desert. In fact, at the end of this month.
Wonderful. Now, did you come away with any revelations from that, or you just more of a puzzle? Did they help you?
Well, I would think that they'd helped me launch a lot of questions for sure, and launched me into a very, very broad quest in all the sciences as far as spirituality goes, the origin of the soul, the nature of existence, living a purpose-driven life, connecting to things from anything from the Bible to the Gita, the Sanskrit, or the Torah. I don't say I'm good at any of those, but I said I've definitely looked into all of them. And then I've attended, thousands of workshops, since I was, much younger. And I see a reoccurring pattern. Like any researcher, you look for consistencies. And what seems to be the consistent theme that rides throughout this whole thing. And so then it starts to form a picture. And I think that the important thing is to be very to try to be very honest with the work and very honest with what you're looking at, and you'll last longer. It's so funny. We were with there was a few speakers tonight down in Conscious Life Expo. We're sitting in the bar after the expo was winding down on Saturday night back in LA in February, and I suggested, why don't us speakers write a book together, and we'll call the book Whatever Happened to That Guy. and this book will be about the people that came and went throughout our field that had a fantastic story, sold a bunch of tickets there for a while. People flocked to go see them. And then they disappeared because either they got into the prediction business or they got into the sensationalism business, or their work couldn't be proven or wasn't founded. So I think if you look at people like you and me and so many of the other speakers that keep lasting year after year, it's probably because they're pretty authentic with their work and they're humble and they're just going about showing what they're finding, and don't try to get into something that really, we're living in the age of exposure, and we're living in the age of truth, as they say. And so some people are just being outed. Almost you wonder how it's even happening, and so I think it's important to maintain.
Who are some of the people that have come and gone? I mean, we have a lot of us that are dead now. So that happened. Death gets us. But anybody that sticks out in your mind, I mean, I'm not tracking who came and gone. And went.
Yeah, and they go for whatever reason. I'm not saying that they're all because they were crooked, they had to drop out of the business.
Right.
Whatever happened to that guy, it was sort of about the men and women that were here. And then you ask yourself, well, why did they drop out? Like, does anybody know whatever happened to Randolph Winters, who wrote the Pleiadian Mission?
Mm-mm. Whatever happened to Jim Sparks? I like Jim Sparks.
Yeah. Whatever
he?
Happened to him? I don't know.
I don't think he was a fraud, but maybe they get scared, maybe they get threatened. I don't know what happened. Well, that would be a great book. I can't wait to
They say
read
that they say A.R. Borden staged his own death, and
really?
People get hot sometimes. That's what the word are. A lot of his friends think that he just staged his own disappearance, and he's still alive.
Really? Wow. And then, there's a few that are not nearly as, as visible, but they're still out there. Like one of them, I think, who's really extraordinary is Barbara Marciniak, and she only does a few appearances a year, but she's still in the business. And she wrote Path to Empowerment, which was a treatise on the human experience. I know it's channeled material, and I understand that is subjective, but however, when I read the book, I thought that's probably the way that it is. That's probably an eloquent treatise on the karmic bound souls that are coming here, and she confirmed something that I've been saying in my lectures for some time now, and that is we're not to get so sidetracked by these little gray, spindly characters with almond-shaped eyes and this kind of thing that are 4 feet tall. No. There are men and women that are coming here that are just like you and I, that have simply benefited from greater time and greater knowledge. And they're responsible for the DNA, and we look like them. We're just sitting down a few octaves from their experience. But from my experience, I've had men and women appear in my room in the form of apparitions formations that have appeared, stayed for a few moments, and then disappeared, and right out through the side of the house, and that's the end of it. And that confirms in her book, saying that some of these beings are coming out of the Pleiades, which is located in the constellation of Taurus, and which is about 440 light years, 440 million miles from Earth. And that this cluster of stars that includes Taygeta, Maya, Electra, Alcyon, Era, a couple of others, that the men and women are coming out of this area. And even in the lost books of Job, in the lost books of the Bible, it says you're descendants of the house of Pleiades. And so you see consistencies happening over and over, and you get, okay, I get the idea. Humanity is not that unique to this sphere.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Wow. So that sounds like a book you need to write, and then you're looking at these people that have come and gone, and yeah, they decide to kind of go behind the scenes. They don't talk as much or very often. And I talked one time to Betty Andreasen.
Wow.
And, I think I had her on my show. I tried to get her back, and it's like, they just kind of, they're not like a lot of the people in ufology. Oh yeah, I'll come. I'll be on your show. I'll come to the conference. They're just kind of really selective about what they're going to do, and I'm not sure the reason behind that. But they could just have busy lives. But that's an interesting thing to explore. There used to be a series called Whatever Became of, books about movie stars of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so that would be a Whatever Became of book about all these people nobody's done a comprehensive ufology book, The People of Ufology, right? That would be good, the encyclopedia of ufologists, and everybody that's been doing this for the last 60, 70 years. I just don't have enough hours in the day, but these are things that would be a service to the world, because these are interesting times, and 100 years from now people are going to look back and go, what were those people doing? What was going on? Because
we're the early pioneers before full disclosure.
Before disclosure, yeah. What was life like before disclosure?
You and I and Sasha should write a book, and it'll be called "We Told You So."
We told you so.
Because we'll look like pioneers ahead of our time,
Susie Hansen says the very same kind of thing that you say, Robert, about they brought her on. They've got a mission for you. You're an ambassador. You're a relative. You're part of them. You're part of their program. You consented to do it. Stuart Swerdlow says the same thing. He's partly Andromedan, and so they think they own him, or Syrian. Whoever thinks that you're in their bloodline, think that you owe them to ambassador, to be some kind of a go-between to Earthlings and give a message.
Why not? We're sort of paving the way. If you notice, it's happening in a whole different area. I mean, a whole different myriad of different ways. When people say, well, how do you think disclosure is going to happen, Rob? And I said, well, think of it like a vase filled with water, pouring water into another great big container of water. It's sort of filling up, and the way it's doing is that the consciousness is changing day by day. You see motion pictures over the last few decades depicting some kind of interaction between human and non-human, some off-world entity. The book market, the internet, the birth of the internet in 97, coming on to where now it's just an everyday occurrence. Magazines, lectures, TED Talks, the list goes on. And all of these are just designed to get you used to the idea. Because it will take decades, literally years, for people to get used to the idea until the next generation grows up with it and says, why would anybody doubt that there's visitors, because it just seems so obvious. It's because the younger generation, the younger ones that are now, they're thinking so different than we are. And so they've kind of grown up with it almost automatically. So at some point, we're ripe and ready for maybe the first official contact. And the reason that we haven't had an attempted landing in a major metropolitan area, such as, Golden Gate Park or Yankee Stadium or the White House lawn, that's definitely one they would leave out, I think. Yeah. I'm sorry. Anyway,
especially nowadays, yes.
Yeah, especially nowadays, I had to throw that in, is because an attempted landing, if you really look at the consciousness of where we're at now, most of us are very divided. Many are living in a lot of fear, struggling for just the basics. Our religious institutions are really a big part of our experience here. We're not really still quite ready. And I hate to say it, but an attempted landing in a major metropolitan area would probably crash the stock market because unfortunately the medium of exchange is the money system, and when people are in fear about anything really, let alone an attempted landing, they pull their money from the market, and then that all of a sudden interrupts the food chain, and it interrupts the security sort of that we have around us, be it our firefighters or whatever it is. So the whole thing collapses in on itself. And so two things. One, that's why we haven't had a major, undeniable landing where lots of people are out there with their cell phones now taking a picture of it. And two, almost all photos that you see are still a little far away and blurry, aren't they? Do you ever notice that? That there's never that one where we got it, and even when we do, nobody believes it anyway. And that's because things going viral can interrupt even right down to the food chain. It can interrupt the way we're at. So disclosure is a very complicated and tricky matter for it to happen. Even though I think we'll see it in our lifetime, I'd like to think right before I go, I saw it.
Oh, no, I want them to come down and then they say, oh, by the way, we're going to reverse your age back to 30.
I love it.
There you go. Yeah. So, somebody came on recently and said that in 5 years, our life expectancy is going to jump to 135. I don't remember who it was, but that stuck in my mind. I said, oh, I'll take that. So they said, just hang in here another 5 years. And it's because of the secrets, super soldiers and secret space program that these technologies already exist as a part of our government that's keeping this from us, and the other parts, out there benefiting from all these advanced technologies and traveling through the universe. So at the conference, I wanted to say, there's something else from your story. I don't want to forget your story. We can always come back to your story because your story is very important. But you've been watching over this field for a long time. I think I met Sasha in 1997. We started going to UFO conferences right away, and you were doing the San Francisco Bay Area UFO conferences, and there I was. That's when I met you. You probably didn't remember us for the first 5 years, but eventually I guess it sunk in. So you've been on the pulse of this all these years, and you were doing it long before I came around. What are your thoughts on how disclosure will unfold? I doubt seriously they're going to land on the way, but they could do a flyby. They could do a massive sighting. I mean, they have enough ships out there that they could, kind of circle the planet so every major city or even minor city could see a UFO at the same time. Much like that movie Arrival, where they had a dozen or 2 dozen large craft at one time. But what do you think might happen based on what you know by all these presenters that you absorb their information?
Well, it's a very complicated question, because if another species arrives here and lets itself be known, and it lets itself to be known to one, say, a particular country, like, say, America, then America's going to want to claim it immediately. And then all of a sudden, because they claim it and because it has come to them, they automatically would almost take a place of being superior over the entire world, because we would have something that no other country would have. We would have the first life forms giving us technology, from another star system. I'm not really thinking that that's going to happen like that, because the benevolent force that comes here might not see us as Americans and Brits and Russians. They might see us as humanity, and that we all are the same to them. All these divisions are something that we put on the earth over history, over hundreds of years, and then we built in belief systems, and we built in behavioral models, and we built in cultures and religious institutions. So I'm thinking that if something did come here, it would have to be a part of it all, literally level the playing field to put us in a position to know it's not threatening, and know that we won't start to annihilate each other because of an outside force. So that's one thing. But there's another side to this story that needs to be told, and this is one that we need to discuss, and that is when the 5G rollout happens, it's not just for faster communication and some other form of being able to institute software that translates into communication sources around the globe. No, 60 Minutes about 3 months ago ran an article, and I watched it on Sunday night on 60 Minutes, where they talked about the satellite that would go up into the air, be launched up with a rocket, and then that satellite carries these small 5G satellites that they're only the size of a bread box or a loaf of bread. And they're planning to release around 15,000 of these that are going to lock into position. And they're going to lock into position, and then they're going to circle the globe. And they were showing in this article how one of these little satellites, 5G satellite that's the size of a bread loaf, could take a picture of a daffodil in the middle of Arizona if that's what they needed to do. So that said, I had to think to myself that the Defense Department certainly is behind all of this. Certainly, if they wanted to know what was happening on the surface to that detail in that detail, then they are certainly, it is possible, we're speculating here, but it is possible they know that there's an outside presence here, and they want to lock in a full picture of anything that enters in the atmosphere and be able to take a picture of literally everything, every human being, every geographic area, and if there's an interruption in the field, such as one of these anomalous lights that pass through our atmosphere, they want to be able to capture it. They want to be able to hold on to it, with the different technologies. So 5G is probably more than just your clean, new, fast energy that's convenient and everything. No, it's the ultimate in surveillance state. They will know everything that is going on a multitude of levels, even if it's extraterrestrial.
It's George Orwell's 1984. And there's nothing we can do about it. Yeah. Well, and I heard, I don't know what's real or not anymore, but I heard that it's very harmful and people are going to start dropping over dead from the effects of it or whatever. What have you heard about that? I didn't get to watch that special. Sounds great.
What, on 5G?
What are they saying about the deleterious effects of the 5G system to us?
I'm not a fan of it because we're already. Have you noticed around you? Well, you live in Hawaiian Islands, so it's a little bit nicer over there, a little less dense. But I think it's problematic in that all these signals that are in the air are causing us to be very confused. A lot of people are experiencing memory loss, confusion. It's affecting some people that have, already ailments, elderly, diseases. One of the things I don't like about 5G, that I think is the most concerning, was an article that I read that showed when placing these satellites into the air, they could literally release, say a chemical that spreads, say, over a particular state. Let's just pick North Dakota for the sake of the conversation here, and they spray this aerosol over the area, and the 5G satellite places the frequency into the aerosol, and then it dissolves, what's below it. In other words, it's like an aerosol can. They literally, bombs and nuclear bombs are a thing of the past. Now you just spray your opponent and level the playing field via 5G frequency. Now, that's one thing that they're talking about. It's a more effective way. You don't have to build hundreds of airplanes and nuclear bombs or try to launch an ICBM missile from the Hawaiian Islands and try to, land it in the center of North Korea, This is a different technology we're talking about. It's a more effective way, a cheaper way of doing things in a more effective way. So not to put a lot of fear out there, but
they could kill us faster.
That's what I
heard. Yeah. Well, I don't think there's much we can do about it. There's these people that make these decisions. They don't ask us. We don't get to vote on it. And next thing we know, it's all based on, making money, or it could be top secret, weapons. So that's kind of the planet we live in, and I just wonder if there are beings out there that really care about us and are going to do something if these things are going to, negatively affect us and start wiping us out, or really do they not care, if we all just start dying off? I don't know. What do you think? Either of you, Sasha, Robert?
Oh yeah, from my perspective, being on the verge of extinction at any time gives a kind of intensity to life, and the things that seem like problems are the challenges and the places where we have an opportunity to stretch and come to peace with the opposites within us and without us, outside us. I am no more afraid of, I didn't believe in rhinoceri. Then I saw them. I didn't believe in all these buggies till I looked through a microscope. I think that if we have confidence in ourselves, we can meet anybody, anything, any being, and say, "I am I," and I would like to meet you in love and compassion.
Yeah. Maybe disclosure is going to happen very individually too. I always thought, we're never going to solve the religious issue, and we're not, and because you don't even have enough time to, if there even is a solving of that. Or there's an old thing that says our religion is right, therefore all the others must be wrong. And a lot of people, you guys know what I'm talking about, live by that. Yeah. And it's reassuring. It's comforting. The ego can make a deal. And it wants to make a deal. It wants to know. And so they make a deal and they say, now I can rest. I have the right religion. That's actually a fallacy. I think that the key here is working towards living your very best life here at every level. And one of the key here is try to be as honest as you can, as honest as you see what's in front of you, and practice the virtues every day of tolerance and selflessness and forgiveness and kindness and compassion, unconditional love. Mm-hmm. And maybe with luck you'll earn that relationship with that visitor that will come to you late at night and saying, we believe you walk in integrity. We believe, we can start a relationship with you. So it's about raising our own personal standards to maybe meet those. This is not a new theory. In religion, they say, well, if you're a very, very, very good person, maybe the angels will visit you directly. We heard about that when we were a kid. It's the same idea with assistance, off planet.
Well, that's very interesting.
Partly when you look at our history, basically the religions are all variations of a patriarchal system which saw that women were subject to inferiority to men, slavery, either economic or physical, or by drafting people took place, and there's been a repeat of warfare playing us against each other. And this is a patriarchal system that has been in contrast with sort of the partnership system that they had in ancient Crete, for example. And I think that that's what we really need to do is to realize that every life is worth living, like they say. Every song is to be sung. Every gift is made for giving, and it's the same for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that about, I'm a lifelong contactee experiencer, and I've had experiences going back to the crib, and I feel really blessed. And whenever I don't have contact, they go, where are you guys? What's going on? Come visit me. Have you ever managed to establish a relationship with these beings or anybody else? Have you had any more additional contact?
I've had many additional contacts at various different levels, but I don't have a continuous one. Like most people, I walk knowing that I have a guidance around me. One of the best teachers I think is in the business was just here over the weekend at New Living Expo, and I spent a little time with him, and he came up to me and said, Robert, and I turned around and it was James Van Praagh.
Oh, yeah, I've never met him.
Yeah, James Van Praagh is one of the very best when it comes to hearing those that are on the other side. And he's confirmed many things. Read Adventures of the Soul. Oh, it's a fun, easy, thin, not a big, thick, complicated book. It gets right to the point. How is this set up? We're living in the material world with a body. We have a committee that follows us. That committee interchanges and is a myriad of different things. It could be your parents that are stopping in to see you and see what they created and how you're progressing. It could be an extraterrestrial scientist of some kind that's curious about the you or how you interpret the material plane. It could be an angelic, one from the higher levels that are coming down from what the Bible calls the seraphim or the cherubim or the B'nai Elohim or Lord knows what. And so there's a whole host of, the entire planet is surrounded by entities of different forms. And the sensational ones that people claim they've seen, the little gray guys with the spindly eyes and everything, this insectoid-styled entity is visiting here also. They may not have graduated in evolution quite like we have with the same style of setup that we have here, but they, as science goes, they've been able to transcend great distances to get here. That doesn't mean that they understand what it is to have a human heart. It's just a completely different kind of entity. And I also say, people might not, some people think this is okay or not okay. I'm not a fan of inviting that into my life. I've not seen really great results. I've seen, not that they're all bad, because they're not all necessarily negative to you, but I have seen some people that have real strong affinity for it, and I see warning signs in and around them that they're not tremendously grounded, that they are sometimes not all here, and that there's signs that are, that the field is interrupted. The actual auric field around their body is interrupted. I'm not a real big fan of the grays. I don't think it's a great idea. I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm just saying I'm very leery of it,
Right. Well, what did James Van Prague say to you? I've just added his book to my Amazon cart. I'm going to buy it because I'm fascinated, because I've been contacted by the dead all my life. So I really want to know what's going on. Sorry I couldn't meet him, but he came right up to you. And so what was your visit like?
Well, I was standing kind of right there, and we were just about to go on stage, and I turned around and I started to say, "Hi, James." And he went, "Robert Perala." He goes, "You've been around a long time." And I went, "Oh, wow. Thanks, James. Yeah, I have been around a little bit." He says, "We've known each other for a long time." And I said, "Kinda, yeah." And I didn't know what to say because, I'd not had real extensive conversations with him. And because I'm in a number of expos over the years, our path, just like you, we paths will cross in the hallway, or in the room, or in a meet and greet. Our paths will cross, and we'll exchange a few things, and there'll be familiarity there. And kind of, in our field, you guys know everyone else. So, people will know, when we say David Icke or we say Giorgio Tsoukalos or David Wilcock, right. we know who we're talking about. We're all in the same kind of family, and everybody says, "Oh yeah, I met him over at this expo, and he said this." So this, I was tickled because James. One thing I like about James is James, starts from the heart first. He's a very heartfelt guy, and he is very gentle, and he's very authentic, and he's not fabricated in any way. And he's earned that position of where he's been because of his contact with those that have passed before us, and then shown the integrity in and around that type of work, and then of course been invited to be on Ellen and Oprah Winfrey and be on the really big shows for really big exposure, and because and I think that those kind of shows are not looking for parlor tricks. They're looking for authentic people that show science, however strange it might be, in its most authentic. And who is this author? that is bringing this to us. And one thing about James is you can't help but like him. I mean, he's Prince Charming.
Wow.
He really is. You meet him and he's very. Notice how when he meets you, how he's talking just to you, and he focuses and listens very carefully just to you, and he says, "How are you?" And he's just saying that. Just the tone is genuine, and you go, "I like this guy." It's not just a quick "How are you?" Okay, let's get it out of the way.
Right. Wow. I never got to meet him. I'm going to have to see if I can make a contact with him. But this is fascinating because I always had the dead come to me. And I never knew what to do with it. So anyway, and the mediums of the previous generation used to channel them through, and they would come through in their original voice. So there was one person that was a author. Anyway, I don't remember, but. I was researching James in Prague, and he was part of a group where the person was channeling, and it was in the real voice of the dead person, and you could match it up with recordings that they had of the dead person, and it matched their voice. So I don't know how those channelers did it. It's not just like talking about it, and it's their voice; it's the original person's voice that's dead. Okay, we'll be back in 5 minutes. See you after the break.
Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
Who are you? I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you.
Why am I here?
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision, which has led you inexorably here.
You haven't answered my question.
The Matrix is older than you know. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equation.
Choice. The problem is choice.
Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Be here Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Private Eye Matrix Revealed with Monique Lessin.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically atomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Collision Course is back. Schedule will be on Revolution Radio every Saturday night, 6 to 8 p.m. You get outer space. You get honest answers, real researchers, truthful answers, and a place to engage with questions. Take part in the discussion. Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com hosts Collision Course every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos. And I'm your host, Janet Lessin, with our co-host, Dr. Sasha, Alex Lessin, producer Thomas Becker, and our guest, Robert Perala. And before we get back, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to the donation button on revolution.radio and make your donation. And we really need your donations. We thank you very much for your donations. So, Mad Painter, Thomas Becker, how are we doing in our fundraising this month?
Really, we're not doing real good. We're still $325 short of the $25.50, and we got only about 5 hours.
Oh my God! Please donate. Some months we're way ahead. I don't know what's going on. Are there any specials? There are no specials.
No, ma'am, not that I remember at the moment.
Alrighty. Well, please donate. Please, please, please. Okay, Sash, what would you like to say before we bring back Robert?
Oh, yeah, we're going to do some contemplation about everything. And I'd like to just say some of the words of Dustin Hoffman from Little Big Man. Dustin Hoffman, yeah, he had some really cool things to say. It was on the script. He said, today is a good day to die. And that means that, today is a good day to die. Have you lived the way you wanted to live? Have you become the person you want to be? I say today's a good day to live, too, so dig it.
All right. Wise words. So you were going to tell us some information about the ascension process. What is that? Take it away.
Well, many different takes on it. The Earth is actually being birthed into a slightly larger expression. This isn't just happening by what we witness in the technological sectors, which are advancing very quickly, but it is actually a phenomenon that is happening when various seers and mystics and astrologers say, yeah, it does appear that we're being birthed into a slightly larger expression. And so I'll say it this way. In my presentation that I do in my lectures, we break it down into what we can... I tried to put it into a structure, kind of a 3 to 4 point structure, so we could kind of understand it better. So there are historical points in time that are of historical significance. And at the present moment, Earth this significance is happening all around us now. We're watching the collapse of many systems, the collusion of ideologies, the acclamation of wealth and power by the few individuals, unstable financial markets, the significance of an emerging intelligence that seems to be coming here in one form or another, where even just recently, just last week, the Navy has agreed to report UFOs rather than keep them from the public, because the Navy Department has said that there are so many people with their cell phones taking pictures outside of commercial airliners now, that for them to say, we don't have anything and we're not withholding anything, they've now have just before New Living Expo, that news broke, and there were several people in the lectures and in the hallways saying, did you hear that thing about the Navy Department's going to release information, and so on and so forth. But this period that we're in is an interesting period, because many souls, human and alien alike, are slowly coming into this sort of inactive, active, informal meetup in one form or another. People are constantly witnessing, or saying that they've seen, a craft near their home or outside an airliner, or people say they have a greater visitation. So the ascension of planet Earth is basically, let's break it down into 3 phases. The first phase, where we could really say that there was a significant shift towards what we would call ascension, is a really extraordinary acceleration of energy marked by these vast technological and rapid changes in human consciousness. Now, how this happened is that we were given a choice, in say about 1987. The astronomers and astrologers at the time were saying that there seemed to be a fantastic change in us as a people. And then in about 1987 to 1986, that period, suddenly the entire globe was aligned in communication with itself as never before, via our vast array of knowledge via the Internet. The Internet was introduced. Now, before the Internet came in, the population could only grow so fast because the world couldn't talk to itself. People forget how significant the Internet is, because the Internet allowed it was as significant or more significant than the telephone, in the sense that now we could actually, the world could talk to itself. All cultures, societies, creeds, religions, people from Russia could talk to people in America, people from America could talk to people in China or whatever, and we weren't able to quite do that in the same way before. And so there was a tremendous acceleration of knowledge about our human experience and our growth pattern, because we were able to speak to ourselves. Now, if you believe in what Barbara Marciniak had been saying in her book, Path to Empowerment, she talks about the period between 1997 and 2007, where another phenomena happened, if I'm not jumping around too much.
You're doing good.
This period was where science, in near-death experience studies, observed consciousness itself existing independently of brain function for the first time. In that window, from that 10-year period, researchers had tried to determine, is the brain actually making up this information? Is that contained in the brain? Or is it the spirit that is actually doing the thinking, and the brain is a warehouse unit of some kind of storage unit for memory? And then they deducted that we're really a spirit. The most of the consciousness is happening just above your head, in the crown chakra and above. Most of the consciousness is there, and then all of the other chakras are activated, and then the entire body is having this conscious experience, and then the brain is really a housing unit. So that was one real significant study. But the next phase was probably one of the most interesting. And this was what we call the harmonic convergence, when a lot of people were saying, well, you'll see in 2012, it's all going to change. And many seers pointed to that window, and then nothing really happened. But from 2007 to 2012, humanity was birthed into what we would lovingly call the new period of enlightenment, or the age of enlightenment. And this time period is very unpredictable, and conflicts will arise all around as humanity will be forced to make quick decisions to ensure safe passage into the future. And seers astrologers have said this is really the period where the new age begins. It wasn't so much that a harmonic convergence was going to take place in 2012, as that was a loose demarcation period for everything we know was going to speed up more rapidly than we've ever thought before, beginning in 2012, and everything, even the sense that the time around you is even speeding up. Have you been feeling that? The time itself is even speeding up?
I think, and somebody said yesterday, older people feel time differently
Are you there,
than
Jen?
young people. Oh.
Yep.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you drag your feet to slow the slow the carousel down, as Joni Mitchell puts it.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. So this period is almost unprecedented. It's almost like. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
It's like I can hear you. It's like we're drowning in information and we're starving for wisdom now. We're just literally submerged in almost too much information, and no one knows quite what to believe.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, good.
Yep. You sound as wonderful as ever. Okay, you take it from there so we can hear you.
I was going to say, I probably need to reset this call because it's messing all up.
Thank you. Just Sasha for a while.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Janet's breaking up quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm going to hang up the call and restart it.
Okay. Call me back.
Okay, what do you want us to do?
Meditate while we're gone.
We can hear you. Okay, you'll call us back? Okay.
Sorry for the problems, folks. We'll get everybody back on here in just a second. It was some kind of a problem there. But we'll get it back going. Or hopefully we will anyways.
I'm back.
There we go. We got Janet.
Okay.
And,
Got
I
Janet.
think Sasha's coming. Let me
okay,
call your guest back.
Sorry we had this technical problems once again, but we'll be back in just a minute. So thanks for joining us. We're talking about the Ascension process. We're here with Robert Perala, and he's educating us on what he's learned about the Ascension process and what we can do to prepare for it. And it's coming now. It's happening now. And we're all going to evolve, become conscious, enlightened, and we're going to have a brave new world where everybody loves each other. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. No, I really looking forward to it. We've been talking about the Ascension process for the last, 20, 30 years. Started with...
Hello there.
Hi. Do we have everybody back? Is Sasha back yet?
No, I think
Right,
he's
Robert.
still trying on the other conversation. I'm trying still.
Oh, goodness. Okay, Robert, keep talking. I'm going to go see what's going on with Sasha. So
Okay.
keep talking.
Well, where we're at now is that, we're right at the stage where, there's so much information that nobody quite knows even what to believe at this point. And the population has grown so big that now the resources that we're even facing are in dire need. And of course, we're in a climate crisis. And so, at the end of the day, I think we're really ripe for an intervention. I mean, I think that at some point, even there's theories about how disclosure could happen. One of the theories is at the point of they don't want to lose this experience, and it could happen during conflict. If Russia and China and America decided to really seriously get into it, this may be a different period where we're not allowed to annihilate ourselves. It is possible that we would be headed into disclosure, that there could be literally an interruption of biblical proportions where we see another, say, an intervention of some kind. Are you following me on that?
Oh,
Yes.
I definitely am. This is a producer, but she's trying to get Sasha back on. I think he's back with us now.
Good.
Say something, Sash.
Something, Sash.
Okay.
She said to say something, Sash. So something, Sash. Are we back on the air with the public now?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Oh my
on
gosh.
We're back. We're all back now. Sorry about that. Okay, continue, Robert. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay.
I think we're ripe for an intervention. I really do. I think there's just a lot of people that want to speculate about why the 5G now. Why take the time when we're already just drowning in information? Why take the time when we have everything we ever needed, practically via the internet and everything? No, I think this 5G is definitely part of a process of watching maybe an unprecedented change. If there was a conflict, a big one, which we're now able to destroy all the resources we have, which is, the source of our own inhabitation, I don't think ET wants to lose this experience. I think that we'd be ripe for an intervention of some kind. This is what the Bible talks about, the end of days. I don't know. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, well, I'm impressed. Yeah, I'm impressed by the work of Ila Prigogine that talks about how when a system gets
Try that again.
Prigogine has in general systems theory shown how when any system has energy running through it and it starts to have perturbations, it'll either blow itself apart or it'll reorganize at a higher level. And so if we start with the premise that whatever is within is also without, and above and below too. And we just start with the divisions within ourselves and among between ourselves and other human beings. We have everything we need to come to peace within ourselves and on this planet, and that's automatically the process by which we come to peace with our fate, whatever it is, with these other forces. And it's all part of, I think, divine plan. It's all part of an organized, systematic universe that has a playful streak and makes things happen in divine play out of the potentials of a metacosmic void. And all of that's available to us, every little part of it. And whatever we think we ain't, we really are too, so dig it.
I agree.
I missed that because it was fading in and out. Oh, I got an echo. I'm going to hang up and call right back.
I got one too.
Okay. The challenges are, in existential theory, the things that really bug you are the things that motivate you to become your best. They're calling you to do something.
I want to interject that I was at a council meeting one night. I found myself in a meeting with over 100,000 souls. Go ahead, talk. I'm still echoing out.
No, go ahead, honey.
Can you hear me now?
We're hearing you now. Go ahead, Janet.
Okay, I found myself at a council meeting. It's like I teleported there, and there was 100,000 unique individual species. And you can't hear me? Okay, somebody else talk. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me all right? Uh-oh, I lost you guys now.
No, you didn't.
Okay,
they're having problems because they're in Hawaii. It just happens sometimes with her.
Oh, that's quite all right. Well, let's see. The next
Robert,
subject that we would want to.
Okay, are we on the air still?
Yeah, Robert, your connection seems to be the best, so you talk.
How funny.
Keep talking.
Okay. Well, I'm on the phone, not on the Skype and everything. Let's see here. Well, I had mentioned my encounter and how that happened. Ultimately, the mind transmits a thought form, and we entertain that thought form all day long. And not all your thoughts are even your own, which is interesting because you're walking kind of with this committee, and that committee kind of has involvement with you at one level, and then sometimes you hear an idea that is given to you in your own mind's voice. That way it's not so disconcerting if somebody from the other side is speaking to you and you heard it in the way that they speak. It would be, well, they call it schizophrenia sometimes, but you would hear maybe an idea in your own mind's voice. I reckoned one night in 1977 that that thoughts had the ability to travel, and that if you sent a thought form, someone or something could hear that and might even respond to it. This is not completely new. This is what the Vedas do. This is what the rishis and the renunciants have done for a long, long time in ashrams and everything, which is to sit still. The yogis say you must sit still. And so I was on December 26th, actually, in 1977, and I sat and I did a meditation, and I called out to the universe, and I asked if anything is out there. I would like to meet up somehow with it. I wasn't really expecting anything to happen right away. I wasn't expecting any. I wasn't even thinking necessarily of a visitation too much. I just thought there would be some understanding or some kind of revealment might tell me that I'm connected to something that more than just the world we see around us. Are you following this story?
Yes, I am. It's very interesting. So
I went to bed that night. I was in the Lake Tahoe Mountains, and where the California-Nevada border meet. And I went to bed that night, and I was in a townhome that's in what's called Heavenly Valley. It's right there on the California-Nevada border in Lake Tahoe. And I was on a skiing vacation, actually. And about 2:30 in the morning, I was startled awake by flashes of incredible lightning that entered the room. Just the whole room seemed to become like an arcing storm of flashes of just blue, white, silver, indigo, just violent light. And then suddenly appeared to me what looked like 3 astronauts. I know that's incredible, but hey, I'm on Aquarius Radio. You would certainly understand.
Right. Go for it.
So I started to scream, and all of a sudden, I was placed, and all of a sudden, I sort of ended up in a blue bubble somehow, and suddenly was floating, and I was frozen in position, and I couldn't move.
Wasn't it painful? You said at one point it was painful.
Yeah, that's
painful?
just the very next part, actually.
Oh, okay,
floating in the bubble was almost like being frozen, just frozen in a space. There was no emotion, there was no pain, there was nothing. It was only when I suddenly was whisked through this white tunnel in this blue bubble that it became. I remember hurling through this tunnel of light. It was horrifyingly painful because I was going through it so fast, and it felt like I was on fire and I was burning. And I had decided that the only thing I could do was to surrender to death, because you can't live when you're on fire. Eventually you just let go, and you just surrender that this is it, And as soon as I let go, it let go. I thought, suddenly all of a sudden it was much less painful, and like if I let go, it let go. Mm-hmm. And then if I started to resist again, it burned terribly. And then I remember going in, somehow I just was in a sphere all of a sudden, some kind of room that was lighted all around me. It was like a big, gigantic, gray, bluish sphere. A bubble. It had no walls, no corners. It had no lights. There was no instruments or equipment. There was no one there to greet me and or say anything. There was no entities. There was nothing there to I would love to tell that story. I was taken aboard and placed in this sphere, and then these entities came up to me. That would be a much more interesting story to tell. But that's not the story. The story is the story. And the story is that I was floating in front of what looked like a glass obelisk of some kind. And I don't know what it was even doing. I don't know if it was interfacing with me or interacting with me. And it was only a short period I was there, and then I suddenly was in the tunnel of light, and then I was suddenly on fire again, and then I suddenly was floating above my bed, and then I was lowered down on my bed, and with that, everything just went up through the ceiling, and just all this light and storm, and these 3 astronauts, whatever they were, seemed to just disappear, and it was over. And I was in a state of shock. I had no idea what this even was. I just remember throwing up over the side of the bed, and eventually, an hour later, crawling across the floor and trying to pull myself up on the vanity mirror and to look myself in the mirror and splash some water on myself. And I realized when I turned on the light, I was sunburned all over, and I was covered in like an oil material. And so that was the beginning. That was really the beginning for me, the encounter. And then that led me eventually to, as we said in the beginning of the program, to that metaphysical bookstore where I located Clarissa Bernhardt, where I located the first UFO conference, which leads me all the way to your radio show and Explain It Again at Contact in the Desert at the end of the month.
Right. And so there you had an event that was a catalyst that changed your whole life, and yet you don't have a real explanation, but you did hear that Clarissa Bernhardt told you that they talked to her about they came to you. So what did they say? Any more to that conversation?
Yeah, no, not that I know of. She was like a channel for them somehow, and she had heard, or somehow they had spoken to her. Now, when they speak to you, it doesn't mean that they appear to you. The second thing is, it doesn't mean that they'll even vocally say, excuse me, have you got a minute? can we have a short talk? No. Sometimes it just pops into your head, and it'll be just like a signal, like an idea, like some words, fragmented words, and it'll just come in. And, that's just how our mind receives information from the other side. Very fragmented kind of. It comes through our ego. It comes from our, through our egoic body. And then we try to interpret it. What is it that we're really hearing on the other side? And sometimes it's actually quite direct. I mean, sometimes the voices from the other side or entities from the other side, as you know, will take over the whole body. And the body goes comatose, not comatose, but becomes very, either in the hypnagogic state, which is that little, where you're kind of half awake, half asleep. That's called in dream therapy. They call that the hypnagogic window, and they'll hover in there and then take over, your spirit a little bit, and then they'll speak directly with your vocal cords and give you a direct address. I believe that's what Barbara Marciniak is experiencing, Barbara Henn-Clow, others that are the full trance channels experience that, versus say like John Edwards who gets a series of fragmented words or ideas and then picks somebody out of a crowd and then identifies them, via that style of medium,
Mm-hmm.
Sorry that my voice is very hoarse and everything.
You're doing great.
I was at the expo all for 3 days, and I was answering a lot of questions, and so there's not much left in my vocal cords.
I know what that's like. I've been there. Got that
They're
t-shirt.
busy, huh?
Oh, yeah. I wish I could have been there, but I'm glad you were there and got to be a part of that. All these things are a part of history, because this is the generation that's changing everything for all of existence. And so we're very, Sasha and I have been able to travel for a while, fighting an illness, but we'll be back. Sasha, do you have any comments or questions for Robert? I think we're all back now. We're done struggling with the sound. Are you there, sweetheart? Hello? Oh, I guess he can't hear.
We must have lost him. Are you guys coming out to Contact this year?
No, I'm not able to travel this year. I've got a medical condition I'm taking care of, but we'll be there next year. Yeah, but I'll be okay.
Good.
Yeah,
good.
Having to deal with some shit. So.
Yeah, I know how it is.
Yeah, you've done that. Yeah, but I wanted to talk about the ascension process. So you did this presentation on the ascension process, and I actually ended up in a meeting with the council. I was trying to say that earlier when the sound wasn't working. And there were 100,000 unique beings, and I was asking them for intervention. They wanted me to report on what it was like being a 21st century human female, living in the United States and Hawaii, and kind of like a State of the Union, and what was it like being a human. And I was a representative of humanity, and I got the impression that I'm not the only one, that they rotate us, right? But it was my turn to come and give a report. So I stood in front of a dais, and there were three. And the best way to describe them, and it's not an insult, but they looked like pig humans, like they had pig kind of features. And then every single being had a unique, there were no two. And I would ask questions like, how many people are here or beings are here? And they said, the answer would be telepathic, 100,000, around 100,000. No two are alike. And the only three that are duplicates are the three on this podium. And those will rotate the next time. It's not the same species. They were kind of just directing the meeting. And so whenever somebody was asking me a question, I would see a light glowing on where they were sitting. It was like this auditorium rose up around me, 360, and I was down in the middle. And but at the same time, they would project an avatar of the person in the seat that might be way up high, in the boonies, up there in the stadium, and then they'd ask me a question, and they'd be standing in front of me, so I would be eye to eye. Okay, I'm going to put this on speakerphone. Anyway, let me finish my story. You can't get on, honey? Hey, up and come back in again. Okay, so anyway, let me finish the story. So I said to them, this is really not going well here. There's too much suffering. I know we're supposed to evolve, become conscious, and that all this that's going on is the catalyst for us to become conscious. But, we really need some intervention here because we've been kept in the dark. We're not getting all the information. And at that point, and this was a few years back, they said, okay, we'll intervene. So, and then I was back in my bed and I was going, wow, maybe that's true. Maybe they will. So, I'm not sure exactly if there's anything I could pinpoint, but it seemed like they responded.
Wow.
So we are going to get intervention. Oh, and then for a period there, I was bilocating. I would open my eyes. I go, yeah, I'm in my bedroom. Yeah, there's the stream. It was morning. There's the birds chirping. Honey, you're making noise. I don't know why you can't hear us, but you're making a lot of noise. And then I closed my eyes and I was still on mute. Okay. I was still in a council meeting. Okay, I'm going to go back and fix it because he probably doesn't know he's on mute. Okay, keep talking. Mad Painter, Thomas, ask Robert a question while I go fix Sasha's computer.
What's that?
Thomas Becker's going to talk to you for a moment while he fixes.
Okay.
Why do you think that our government has kept us in the dark for so long? Do you think there's a nefarious reason behind it?
Oh, sure. They have a culture. They're in the business of they have a culture and a society to protect, and we have so many problems already. They are just absolutely besieged with problems, and the last thing they need is now the extraterrestrial question. So they're in the security business of national security, and so they're so busy with that issue and everything that also the idea even of an extraterrestrial intervention of some kind is so far out. They don't know how to deal with it. They don't really know the kind of, if they have the incredible ability to transgress the incredible distances it would even take to get here, then they certainly would have the ability to do something much more harmful if that was their interest. But actually, I don't think so. I don't think that our ET visitors are very harmful at all. They've had all the time in the world to take over. I think what is protecting us is a great force, a benevolent force that is far advanced, than us, and has tremendous more interest in us, and is much more interested in preserving the whole birth and death process. The whole idea of a DNA string of life forms that spawn generations of family. I think they have tremendous interest in protecting that in their interest. I don't think they're interested at all in I don't go along with that we're going to be slaves of an alien race. I think, to those people, I say, get a life. Do more homework. Come on, please.
That was an awesome answer. I believe Sasha.
Sasha, you there? Sasha, can you hear us?
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway,
probably channeling in the back bay. He's channeling in the back bedroom.
He's back there. I unmuted him. He was hearing. I don't know what's going on with his computer. He's not muted anymore, but I don't know what's going on. Anyway, we're here. Oh, okay. So we're almost done with the show anyway. But yeah, I agree that I've had contact with aliens all my life, and I really haven't had any negative experiences. I perceived there was a negative one when I was dealing with the reptilians, but it was only when I did therapy on it, I did regression, hypnosis. They were puzzled why I was having that reaction. It was only because they were just so different looking. But they energetically, they're a little bit rough to handle because their telepathy is different than the Greys, and I had been introduced to the Greys and Greys is such a narrow term. There's a lot of species that are probably from that kind of species, right?
Sure. Sure.
They look at different sizes and shapes and everything like that. But they're like they showed them with the 100,000 species. They go, "Why are you showing me that?" And they said, "This is only such a small percentage of all the beings that exist in the universes, and some of them." They'd be so frightening to you, we're not going to show you them because you couldn't handle it. And then there's interdimensionals and different vibratory frequencies. So they really show me a sample. And so the universe is teeming with life, just like on the Earth. How many different types of beings do we have here? You know, look at the insect world and the plant world. That's what the universe is, full of life. And there's so many sentient life forms in which to inhabit. But this planet is the end result of an experiment that's going back probably trillions of years. And I agree with you, Robert. They're not going to want to see us wiped out. But I think this is part of an experiment to get us to, like you talked about, to ascend, to evolve, to become conscious. They want us to join the Federation. They want us to be a spacefaring race. They love us. And so that's what I'm excited about. So let's, we got like about 15 minutes. So this conference, which I'm going to miss because I'm sick, but you're going to tell me about it later. What are the hopes? Contact in the Desert is like one of the biggest conferences in the world right now. And it happens every year around this time. And it's kind of taken off. And it's not the oldest one. There's a couple more that are older. But it has taken off. What are the hopes of this one? Tell us about what do we hope?
Well, the goal is to bring the public there, to bring them into an awareness of different sides of this whole science. Each speaker there is so different from the next guy, and has such a different take on what is visiting us, and why, what is here and what is available. There's probably no other show I can think of really in the world that is as big as this. I mean, you have something like 57 speakers this year that include, Mary Rodwell, Nassim Harriman, Eric Van Daniken is coming all the way from Europe, David Childers, incredible Richard Dolan, Hugh Newman. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. They call it the UFO, or they call it the Woodstock of UFOs. I think that's very appropriate, And it's going to be down there at the Renaissance Hotel, which is in Indian Wells, right there, May 31st to June 3rd. So you've got a good 4 days of conferences, lectures, workshops. They're going to have a sky watch, which I think is really important. I've been to some of the sky watches down there. The one that was interesting was probably 3 years ago, where we didn't have too much during the sky watch until the very end when people were packing up, and then they hear, what is this? All of a sudden they see Giorgio Tsoukalos come down with Eric Van Daniken and his assistant Ramon and a couple of other stragglers, and they said, oh, come on, bring out the goggles again. We brought them out one more time, and sure enough, there it was, right there and then. Most beautiful anomalous lights, and went up into a triangle formation. It was just incredible. And for people who have never seen a skywatch, and take the time to come out to Contact in the Desert and see it for yourself. It's very exciting. It's like fishing. You don't know if you're going to get a fish on the line. So it's like that. You're fishing in the universe. You might get something, you may not, but you'll never know until you participate, And
well, one of the years that I did the sky watch, I saw like 20 of them in a couple hours. And so when I got the goggles, I would kind of like scan the sky, and then I'd feel them out, and then I'd say, there's somebody there, and then they would start running, and then they go, there. So, it made a believer out of me, and I'm already a believer. It's like, wow, if you want to go into the next level, go on a sky watch. So I recommend that. Now, you're going to get this in a few days. You'll probably get your program. It's probably up online already. How do you decide where you're going to go to see? So you're working it. So you're getting assigned to certain things, right? And do you have time to check out anybody else, or are you just going to be wherever they send you?
Yeah, no, I have time. They like my intros. That's why they're bringing me down as an MC, and I'm good at that because I really love to get excited about other people. And I think when you get excited about other people, the audience will be excited about it as well. And I do a little bit of homework on who these people are. I've already gotten that manifest just last week. So I'll look and see who they are so we can give them a proper introduction. And then in between, I'm preparing musically with Malcolm Dane and Linda Russell, and we were just added last week. I don't think it's even on the website, but we were just added last week to the show, to the dinner on Saturday night, in which they're going to give a Lifetime Achievement Award to Graham Hancock. And so it's a sit-down dinner. If you haven't got your tickets yet, you want to get them to the event and to the dinner. It'll be very exciting. And we'll be playing, a series of different songs for you, soft acoustic and love songs and things from Paul McCartney and other people. And then the dinner is wonderful. It's a choice of vegetarian and a meat dish. And you get to meet all your famous speakers. Each table has a different speaker at it, so you'll be able to sit with one of your favorite speakers. So, and you can see it all at contactinthedesert.com.
Wow.
You want to check that out right away. For all you listeners out there, you want to go to contactinthedesert.com. I will tell you that the hotel is sold out, but the adjacent hotels still have rooms, so you want to get in there early. And as a matter of fact, let's see. Yeah, you want to get in there early as you can and try to get, signed up online and then get yourself a room separately at the Hyatt next door is probably pretty advisable.
Mm-hmm. So, we finish your story. So you had this experience, and then what happened next in your life? You had this magical experience. And you said you were busy in your life, and you've been doing things your entire life. So you were inspired by this UFO thing, but then, you had to juggle it and put it aside and integrate it. What was the next critical incident in your life after you had that experience? You went to that conference with 18 people.
Yeah, not too much. There's a whole other side story in the beginning real quickly. Is I saw apparitions as a kid, and they took me to various people. In fact, Reverend John Roger Hinkins interviewed me. There's still reel-to-reel tapes that we have here at the house. In the mid-'60s, in '66, they wanted to know why I could see. And they told me to read the book The Boy Who Saw True, because for some reason I was having visitors at night, and they were men and women and sometimes children. And I thought that everyone saw like that. And then it was only later on that sight disappears as you get older. And I became like 12, 13, 14, 15. That second sight sort of diminishes a little bit. And then I really didn't talk about it for a long time. I thought that people would think I was crazy. But that's how I have many accounts. I remember as a child witnessing them in my room and seeing them as more or less almost an apparition. Many times they would speak, not necessarily to me. They would talk mostly amongst themselves. And I thought that, for a long time, well, surely you must have seen this. I mean, everyone would have seen that. And then they would say, oh, no, he's crazy. And so I didn't say anything more about it.
That's probably why you didn't. Yeah, that's probably what blocked you from seeing them. And I had the same. Robert, we have a lot in common there. I had the same thing going on. I had to deal with, these apparitions in my house. People would die and they'd come to me, and I'd had to deal with that. And at some point, I had to stop it. It's like, and this is going on to this day. And I was sorry, Dr. Lessin can't respond, but I asked him. I go, how do I stop this? Because I'm not getting sleep at night. They're just everywhere. So I'm sure if you would have gotten more support, like James Van Prague, you could have developed your abilities and continued contact and perhaps. But that was not your path, so you chose another direction. But isn't that interesting how we all have these roads not traveled type experiences in our lives that set the course, set our destinies? Isn't that interesting?
Sure, it's rich and full. I mean, people don't know this about me, but, I was in my family's business for 24 years, and my dad had the business for 33. I sold sunglasses, And I
Oh
mean,
my
I
God.
sold a lot of them. I mean, in the 70s and 80s and the beginning of the 90s, I sold sunglasses in the millions. And I did very well financially. It was in those days when you really could be a sales rep. Now sales reps are a little tiny chip that reside in your computer, and they're owned by one guy. And the sales rep is one guy, Jeff Bezos, you know? And it's not quite like that. It's not quite like that, but it's close to that, you know. And I did very well in those days. It was a lot of fun. And then, you know, eventually in 94, I did the first talk at a church called the Divine Science Church in San Jose, on a hot July day. And it was Virgil Staff, who at the time was head of MUFON in Northern California, who invited me to speak as I put up a poster in the bookstore. And he asked me, have you been speaking a lot on the phone? He's looking to book a speaker. I had never, and I said, yes, I had been speaking quite a bit. I didn't tell him I'd never done a lecture before. He asked me if I'd been speaking a lot. Well, I'd been speaking to my mom and my dad, and, you know, I'd never done it. I didn't tell him that part. I thought, well, you know, why spoil it? Look, you got to start somewhere. I went to go do the lecture. I was as nervous as a person can be on a day that happened to be like 102. It was like, one of those days. And I went up there, and in those days, lectures were packed for this kind of thing because you didn't have the internet. So you had to go see it live because there wasn't the internet. So in those days, MUFON had 150 people in their meetings. And I went up to the stage and turned around to face my accusers. And then, you know, after the hour was up, it was over. I'll never forget it. The guy came up to me and said, that's the most fantastic story I've ever heard. Incredible. Listen, I work over at Stanford University. Would you come over to Stanford? And we have an alumni group or a meetup there. Would you come and speak to our group, and we'll pay you to do that?
Oh, my God.
And I thought to myself, me speak at Stanford? Man, I used to get report cards that said, don't call us, we'll call you. And I went and I spoke at Stanford, and it never stopped.
What was your first topic? What was your first lecture on?
It was called The Extraterrestrials Are Here. And it was almost entirely about my encounter. And then it was also about, I'd grabbed work about the photon belt, which was going on at the time. And I had been talking to guys like Sheldon Neidl at the time. And doing Sheldon. About the Galactic Federation, and what it might be and might not be, you know? So those were really fun days, I'm telling you. Yeah.
He's another one for Where Is He? That book you're going to write about. Where are these people now? Where is Sheldon Neidl?
He's somewhere now. I understand he's up near Sacramento. And he has a small interest group, and you can find him online.
Wow, okay. He used to live in Maui, and I used to go to his presentations in Maui. He had like once a month or something, and then I invited him up for dinner one time, so he came to our house, so that was exciting.
Great.
So, wow. So, so then you got on the circuit. So, see, because when I met you, I go, well, obviously this man's been doing something for you to be up there on this stage at the UFO Congress. You know, you were an important person even back then. So you had developed as a speaker, and you're still doing it. You're still going strong.
Yeah, and then because I got into event management and I started putting on events in one form or another, I would get like brought on as sort of pseudo staff because I knew a lot about how an expo works and about to be on deck and to know that anything can happen, just to be aware. If you get, you get 1,000 people, as you know, you put these things on. You get 1,000 people in a ball in a hotel, and you got 3 rooms, filled with people, and you got schedules. Something's going to happen. You got to be aware. You got to be prepared for it.
There's always something. Yes. So you learn how to think on your feet and be quick, and be able to improvise. And I've seen you do it. You're a master at it. Like, okay, we're going to stall for time.
And then I get into the show and I learn all these. I'm a student just like everyone else. You know,
Right.
I'd be sitting there listening with rapt attention, like, wow, where'd this guy come from? Where'd this woman come from? You know.
Mm-hmm. So we have
Great
2 more
stuff.
minutes till about the end. So are you presenting this year, and what you're going to be part of panels? What are you doing at this event?
Yeah, incredibly, because they normally have 50 speakers and they've gone all the way to 57. You know, I went ahead and told Victoria, the producer of Contact in the Desert, that that'd be fine if I didn't speak. That if I didn't speak, I'd really like to provide the music. And so she said, all right, then let's do that. And so Malcolm Dane and Linda Russell and you can see us on my Facebook page at Robert Perala. And we're going to be doing a set of music on Saturday night. And the rest of the time will be me just helping the rooms, emceeing, doing introductions, being available. And also I'm going to be down there doing interviews and keeping my own thing going.
Mm-hmm.
And meeting people and meeting the audience. And I'm working with George Norrie. He's going to be singing at his luncheon on Friday, I think it is. Yeah. So they contacted me. You know, even today, I talked to Tom and to his everybody to get prepared for. He's a wonderful singer, and he's coming out and singing at his luncheon. And so that side he really loves.
He does.
And it's all at contactinthedesert.com.
There you go, and that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for coming, Robert.
Thanks, Janet. We'll talk to you real soon, okay? Okay. Bye.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver Eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.